Hi students, welcome to Vijayata IAS Academy Current Affairs class. We segregated important news items from the Hindu newspaper. First we see international news, later we see economy news. In the front page itself, this is the news given in the Hindu. Indians told to rush from war-hit Kharkiv. As you know, war is going on between Russia and Ukraine. Already the consequences of this war are being felt worldwide. India is also not exception. India is already facing the consequences of this war. Already India lost one of his students' life in this war. Here, amid the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a telephone conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday evening to safeguard Indians' lives there. This was the second conversation between two leaders in the past 7 days. Immediately after war began, our Prime Minister called Mr. Putin, and this is second time he called to safeguard the lives of Indians. Mr. Modi spoke to Mr. Putin hours after the Indian embassy in Ukraine issued an urgent advisory for all Indian nationals in the war-torn eastern city Kharkiv and urged them to leave by early evening. This shows the kind of dangerous situation that is prevalent in Ukraine country. Here the operation India is doing Operation Ganga. With this operation, India is aiming to safely bring back Indians home. The advisory from the embassy of Kyiv asked citizens to proceed to nearby destinations of different cities as soon as possible so that they can be evacuated from these places. The tone of the advisory, which asked Indians to reach the destinations under all circumstances, indicates the level of current military situation in Kharkiv city and its suburbs. This shows the dangers that are prevalent in the Ukraine country. India has been conducting Operation Ganga to evacuate its nationals stuck in Ukraine ever since Russian campaign began on February 24th. Operation Ganga you can quote in mains examination. Prelims, most of the times prelims may not ask such kind of operations, but in other exams whoever is writing other UPSC related exams, Operation Ganga may be useful. But the most challenging part of the evacuation lies in the eastern part of Ukraine in cities such as different cities where a large number of Indians are stranded. While Indian officials are working from Belgorod, which is located near Kharkiv, concerns remain about a similar exit route in Sumy. So in different places Indians are studying, Indians are there, medical student, business people, and various other people are there. Now it is very important for India to safeguard the lives of Indians. India is conducting Operation Ganga to evacuate its nationals. Meanwhile, at United Nations General Assembly asks Russia to pull back troops. Here let us see what is India's response, how India is responding to the United Nations General Assembly resolution, and also how India is viewed by other countries. India once again abstained as the United Nations General Assembly voted 1455 to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, calling upon Moscow to unconditionally withdraw its troops. Earlier this week, in United Nations Security Council, a resolution came. USA brought this resolution along with Albania. There, India abstained from voting. Later, after UNSC failed to resolve the issue went to General Assembly. Once again, in General Assembly also, resolution came for voting. Here also, India abstained from voting. Along with India, there are some other countries also in our own neighborhood who abstained, but some countries in our own neighborhood, they voted in favor of resolution. Now, this is a kind of difficult situation for India, whether we cannot be seen by world community as we are supporting Russia, because in this case it is a clear-cut case of aggression. Russia declared war on Ukraine. It is a unilateral declaration of war. It is an aggression. India should not be seen as supporting Russia, because India can also become a victim of such kind of arbitrary actions by neighboring countries. In that case, it becomes difficult for India to garner support at the world level. And at the same time, we cannot vote in favor of resolution also, because Russia is a trusted ally for India since independence. Voting on the resolution occurred after representatives of more than 120 countries, territories, and associations made remarks over 2 days at a special emergency session of United Nations General Assembly. The session was convened after a similar resolution failed to pass the United Nations Security Council when Russia exercised its veto. In United Nations Security Council, Russia is having veto power. When UNSC brought resolution, Russia vetoed, whereas India and China and UAE abstained voting at United Nations Security Council. After that, issue came in General Assembly. Here also, India abstained from voting. The resolution co-sponsored by 96 countries, condemned February 24th special military operation. It is the term used by Mr. Putin to declare war on Ukraine, but really it is invasion by Russia. It says no territories acquired through force. The resolution is saying that no territories acquired through force will be recognized, and calls for Russia to immediately, completely and unconditionally withdraw from Ukraine. These terms, these adjectives you can use in our examination also. The kind of force, the resolution, the terms used, the forceful terms used by resolution to condemn Russia. Here the question can be like the role of United Nations in resolving the conflicts. When such kind of questions come, you can use these terminologies and you can quote this resolution as one of the examples how United Nations General Assembly influenced the world community to resolve the conflicts. Now let us come to India. What India is saying or what India's position at United Nations. Now it is many Western countries are expecting India to vote in favor of resolution, but still India is maintaining its tough position. India is maintaining position that it abstains from voting both in United Nations Security Council as well as in United Nations General Assembly. Safe and meanwhile, our Indians are also stuck in Ukraine. Our Indian citizens' lives are also matter for us. Safe and uninterrupted passage of Indian nationals, especially students, was India's foremost priority. India's permanent representative to UN said this in United Nations, calling for an immediate ceasefire and humanitarian access to conflict areas. He said that India hoped the second round of talks between Russia and Ukraine would yield positive results. Since the beginning of this conflict, India always favored diplomatic solution and peaceful solution between two countries. India never supports any aggression. India never supports using arms as a means to resolve the conflicts. Russia's actions have left India in an uncomfortable position as it attempts to balance its interests with both Moscow and West. This is the difficult situation for India. We need the help of both Western countries as well as Moscow, Russia. Given its experiences in its own neighborhood with China and Pakistan, India is also wary of the implications of not condemning one country unilaterally attempting to change the borders it shares with another. In case of India also, India shares borders with Pakistan, China. We have conflicts and some issues with Pakistan and China because these two countries are aggressive in nature. They try to unilaterally encroach upon India's territory. When we are victim of such kind of aggressive policies of our neighbors, we cannot support in this case Russia, because here unilaterally Russia is trying to invade other territory which is recognized by United Nations, which is having sovereign power in its own territory. Ukraine is an independent country which is having unity and integrity, sovereignty. It enjoys the rights of countries like unity and integrity, sovereignty. However, if such a country can be invaded by powerful neighbor, then this will have catastrophic consequences on other countries, other small countries or weak countries as well. So India is not favor of this kind of policies. However, still India is not able to condemn Russia publicly. India urges that all member states demonstrate their commitment to the principles of UN Charter. India always favor the United Nations, global governance and respecting the principles of peaceful coexistence, to international law and respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states. A number of countries in India's neighborhood supported the resolution. For example, Bhutan, Nepal, Maldives, they supported the resolution and condemned Russia. However, along with India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, like India, abstained. China also abstained. Even Afghanistan and Myanmar, currently ruled by junta, also voted in favor of the resolution. Now you can see the neighborhood countries, what is their position at United Nations when it comes to Russia and Ukraine crisis. United Arab Emirates, which abstained from the voting in UNSC vote, now in this case in General Assembly, it voted in favor of the resolution. India is also referred in other countries' speeches also. India found mention in the speeches of other countries. The representative of Russian ally Belarus, were mentioned racism faced by Indian students in his speech. Russia ally Belarus, it said that Indians are facing racialism in Ukraine. So they are supporting India's stand. Russia and Belarus, they support India's stand. On 26th February, he is giving an example also near Polish border. Guards beat up and turned back into Ukraine a group of 100 Indian students who then were kindly placed in a refugee camp in Romania. It is just to give an example, they are trying to support their cause. Belarus and Russia, Belarus supporting Russia. Now Russia's action are being supported by Belarus. Now they are supporting India's stand as well by giving such kind of examples. Even Ukraine representative, Ukraine regretted that Indian student had been killed by Russian shelling in Kharkiv and offered his condolences to the family of deceased Navin SG of Karnataka, who got killed in this particular war. This is India's position. This is about Russia, Ukraine crisis and India's position at United Nations. Another news is about Quad. India is natural leader of Quad in the Indo-Pacific. It is about presently going Milan Exercises. Here, Australian High Commissioner of India, he is saying that India is clearly the natural leader in the region in terms of vision of Quad. Recently, India participated in Quad meeting. It is a meeting of 4 countries: Japan, India, Australia and USA. Now in this context, now here in this part of the world, in Indo-Pacific region, India's interests are to be protected. Now in this Indo-Pacific region, India's interests are to be protected only when we are strong, having strong marine power, and we have control over this particular, we have influence in this particular region. Australia, Japan, India, US came together, formed Quad grouping. And many countries presently naval exercise Milan is going on. Australia is also participating. Now taking this as a incident or the event, Australian High Commissioner is telling about India is clearly the natural leader in the region. The exercise Milan, where 14 countries including Australia took part, demonstrate the cooperation across countries in Indo-Pacific to secure free, open and prosperous Indo-Pacific. When it comes to Quad, you can use this phrase: always India wanted free, open and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. If any country, here indirectly they are targeting China, because in South China Sea, Chinese posture or aggressive posture is creating trouble for neighborhood countries of South China Sea. In that context, Indians and here Australia, they are always aiming for free, open and prosperous Indo-Pacific region where one country do not bully the other country. Always want the resources of Indo-Pacific region must be shared by all countries in the region. The good news is that all four countries, India, Australia, US, Japan, these are the four Quad members, are working together, whether it is on vaccine rollout, disaster relief and other issues like climate change. Quad not only should be seen as a strategic grouping. Now these countries are working along with the strategic interest. They are working on other common interests which are very essential and important to resolve, like vaccination due to COVID, disaster relief and other climate change related aspects. He said there were four bright spots in the relationship between India and Australia: defense, economic issues, education and tourism. These four are important bright spots according to Australia High Commissioner to India. He said in these four areas India and Australia can cooperate together. With Australia opening up its borders from February 21 due to COVID, now COVID is coming under control. Earlier, due to COVID, there were so many restrictions on travel. Now Australia is opening up once again. Now many Indians are going into Australia, and mainly they are students and also IT professionals and other business professionals who are there in Australia. He said a third of the students who had returned to Australia to continue their education following COVID-19 lockdowns were from India. Now anybody with a visa is able to travel to and from Australia. They only have to be double vaccinated. Whenever if they have vaccinated, then they can freely go and come from Australia. This is to show the relationship between India and Australia in the context of Quad meeting. Then purpose of Quad, relationship between Australia and here Milan Exercise. Here the event is Milan Exercise. A small detail about Milan Exercise is it's a naval exercise. 2 years once it is conducted. Since 1995 it is being conducted. It started with 4 countries. Later, now today 14 countries in this year 14 countries joined and they are participating in this exercise. Now we have to see look east policy. Later it became act east policy. Policies like Sagar scheme, security and growth for all in the region scheme. In these schemes, in these policies also, Milan exercises like Milan will help India's stature, and it becomes one of the tools to maintain strong relationship in the region. This is about Milan exercise, and in that particular event Australia's High Commissioner to India highlighted India and Australia relationship. Next news is about considering safe passage Russia envoy, because Indians are now stuck in Ukraine. Now here Russia is saying that we will consider providing safe passage to Indians. From there they can be evacuated very easily. Russia said it was actively considering providing humanitarian corridor to Indians staying in Ukraine eastern city of Kharkiv, which has a significant number of Indian students and professionals. Russia appreciated India's position at the United Nations Security Council and said Moscow would investigate the death of the Indian medical student in Kharkiv. Now India's position at United Nations Security Council and United Nations General Assembly, India abstained from voting. Naturally, Russia appreciates this position. Here Russian envoy is appreciating India We are actively considering, and also he is assuring India to provide humanitarian corridor so that they can be evacuated through the Russian territory. This is how they are saying. The Russian envoy condoled the death of Naveen SG, who was killed on Tuesday while standing outside a grocery store. He was summoned by Ministry of External Affairs on following the death of the student who hailed from Karnataka. We are thankful to India, Russian envoy is saying, for its balanced position. India understands the depth of the current crisis and its complexity. We hope India will continue with its balanced approach, he said. So this is the reaction from Russia. However, India, it's a difficult position. Now the Western countries will react in a opposite way with respect to India's position at United Nations and Security Council. The envoy also assured that there would be no disruption because India is depending on imports from Russia, mainly defense imports. Here the technologically advanced missile system S-400 is being delivered. Here he is assuring India that there would be no disruption in Russia's military supplies, saying S-400 deal will not be impacted. 100% assurance on that. He is saying that. Impact on sanctions. Already there are sanctions on Russia. Now what is impact of sanctions on India and Russian relations? Russian economy was doing well despite the sanctions. Our economy is stable and we will withstand the pressure that we are experiencing and we will experience in the future. This is how Russia project itself to the world community, that they are doing good, sanctions are not for anything, so that they can put forward their point of view to the world community. He argued that Russia was not using banned weapons. Now there are some allegations that Russia is using some banned weapons also in the war. If such weapons are used in the war, it leads to war crime and also it will drag Russia in further complications at the world level. He is trying to project as if Russia is not using any banned weapons on the Ukraine front and assured that bombings were taking place after giving out warnings to ensure that civilians were not harmed during the ongoing military campaign. On one side, the war is declared, unilateral declaration of war. However, they try to project it is a genuine war and it is only military operation, no civilians are killed, no banned weapons are used, so that they can escape from or they can put forward, they justify the war they are doing in Ukraine. This is from the Russian point of view. However, India is victim now, Indian lives are at stake. Now India had to maintain relations with Russia to safeguard our interests also and Indians also in Ukraine. This is about international news. Now let us see some important economy news also there in today's newspaper. Here our Prime Minister is talking about Sunrise Industries, clear roadmap for 5G auction. So he is talking about some of the important developments with respect to economy while discussing about union budget. Here in the context of US President also, US President Joe Biden's State of the Union address, he mentioned that make in America and rely less on foreign supply chains. US President also now appealing to Americans. American President is appealing to American people that make in America and rely less on foreign supply chains. Way back in few years back itself, Indian Prime Minister and Indian government started talking about Atmanirbhar, Make in India program. So now once again, this occasion once again gave an opportunity for Indian Prime Minister to focus on Make in India and also self-reliant or self-sufficient within Indian territory. Make more cars. Here these are the terms, phrases used by American President. Make more cars and semiconductors in America, more infrastructure innovation in America, more goods moving faster and cheaper in America, more jobs where you can earn a good living in America, and instead of relying on foreign supply chains, let's make it in America, he said in State of the Union address. Prime Minister Narendra Modi too ought to be Atmanirbhar and take cognizance of this global trend. So he is also once again taking cognizance of this fact, and he is appealing to Indians also taking this as global trend, and now India also should focus on self-sufficient, that is Atmanirbhar. A webinar to discuss union budget allocations for science and information technology said the budget laid emphasis on sunrise sectors. Here special focus we have to give for examination. What are sunrise sectors? What are the benefits of sunrise sector for future economy? Here sunrise sectors are, they are like which are having future potential. If we invest in such sectors, in future huge progress can be made in those sectors. For example, artificial intelligence, geospatial systems, drones, semiconductors, space technology, genomics, pharmaceuticals, clean technologies, and 5G. These are future technologies. These are having a lot of potential for future growth of economy. If we invest today, it will reap a lot of benefits tomorrow. Such kind of industries are called sunrise sectors or sunrise industries. Prime Minister is laying emphasis on sunrise sectors in case of union budget. The budget laid a clear roadmap for 5G spectrum auction. This is the future communication technology. And PLI schemes, production linked incentive schemes, also had been proposed for design led manufacturing related with a strong 5G ecosystem. So this news is talking about here Prime Minister is appealing for strong manufacturing ecosystem. If we have strong manufacturing ecosystem, it will generate employment, and also it will generate a lot of economic growth. It will have a lot of growth potential for future. He asked the private sector to increase in efforts in this area. Use of technology. We are familiar with the principles of science, but we have to emphasize how to make maximum use of technology for ease of living. So we know the technology, but now he is appealing for private sector how to make this technology is useful for people and make the life easier. The global market for gaming was expanding, so he is appealing. Budget has focused on animation, visual effects gaming. On gaming sector also there is huge potential he is highlighting. India needs to adapt toys to Indian Milu and needs manufacturing sector. Modi also emphasized the need of a robust data security framework. In this context, here proper security infrastructure also should be there. Here this everything future now depending on interconnection or internet related technologies like robotics, internet of things, artificial intelligence, all these are going to interconnect the computers. In this context, securing the data is the most challenging and also essential part of future technology or future economy. In that context, robust data security framework should be there. Here in this context, you can bring out the terms like data localization, where Indians' data should be safeguarded within Indian territory itself. And some kind of regulatory framework also should be there to protect the Indians' data. Because cyber security, now compare with, now you link with cyber security, challenges of cyber threats to India. In future, cyber threat is going to be a major danger for economy of India. Now, how to enhance this cyber security ecosystem, how to neutralize cyber threats. For all these things, we need proper data security framework. So he is also focusing on that need for data, robust data security framework. So these are all to generate awareness and also appealing to Indians that in sunrise sectors there is huge potential, and invest in these huge potential areas and generate employment, and also there is need for data security framework. So please give some kind of suggestion so that India can create a robust data framework. That is about sunrise sectors and appeal of Prime Minister to private sector in modern technologies. Next news is about trade deficit widens to 21 billion. It is talking about trade deficit. Now, trade here, India's merchandise exports. Trade deficit means the value of exports. If we subtract value of exports with value of imports, we get trade deficit. India exports less comparing with imports. In the value of imports are more comparing with India's exports. That is why India faces a trade deficit rather than trade surplus. Here, comparing this news comparing with November, in November $22 billion trade deficit was there. So this much imports more than exports. And when it comes to January, 17 billion. Once again in February, now 17 billion to 21 billion it raised. The news is talking about trade deficit widens. So this is how imports here. This news highlighted fertilizer imports increased, coal imports increased, and gold imports little bit less. A rebound in oil and gold demand amid the warning of third wave called COVID, along with rising global commodity prices fanned by escalating geopolitical tensions, boosted imports and bloated the mercantile trade deficit. India's import will increase, that is why trade deficit widened. And here this is mostly mercantile deficit in March would be determined by duration of Russia-Ukraine conflict. This is so far the trade deficit. Now already geopolitical tensions are going on between Ukraine and Russia. Now it will have economic consequences. It is going to affect once again India's importable and export operations. It will have further damage on India's trade. Impact on commodity and crude oil prices. Cumulative outbound trade for 21-22 appears on track to cross 400 billion target, having surpassed 374. So far, the setting target was 400 billion trade target. It is almost reached. However, if trade deficit increases, if importable increases due to growing tensions, oil prices may increase and exports also may reduce further. Due to this, trade deficit will increase. It will have impact on forex reserves. If more importable is there, we have to give more forex reserves outside. It will depreciate rupee also, and it will create inflationary conditions in Indian economy. Now it will have cascading effects on various sectors, like monetary policy of RBI will not be effective, and also due to growing vulnerabilities in the market, fiscal targets also once again need to be adjusted according to the requirement of economy. So this is about trade deficit. Now impact of Russia and Ukraine crisis on banks as well. Banks fret as sanctions stall Russia trade settlements. Now banks are also being affected. Here exporters and importers, the transactions between exporters and importers go through banks. Banks now cannot easily transact due to sanctions on Russian banks and Russian financial system. Indian banks are scrambling after bills for imports from Russia have started bouncing and payments for exports have been struck. Exporters will not get payments on time, and imports also we cannot pay the bills for imports on time. In the wake of sanctions imposed on Russia following its invasion on Ukraine. Due to the various sanctions, the payment settlements have halted, and that's a concern for banks right now. This has been shared by lenders with central bank and industry body. RBI, now the banks will explain the condition to RBI. Now RBI should come up with some other alternatives where this financial system once again goes smoothly. RBI has met with select bankers and is trying to assess the exposure that lenders have to Russia and to Ukraine and the impact it may have on banks. Russia and Ukraine, these two are now fighting. Sanctions are imposed on Russia. Now it will have impact on the traders who are exporting to Russia and who are importing from Russia. Russian exports to India. Russia's exports stood at 6 billion. India exported 3 billion worth goods to Russia. India, which has deep trade and defense ties with Russia, is yet to criticize long-standing arms supplier Russia publicly over Ukraine and has instead urged both sides to cease hostilities. This is the political situation, political stand as of now. India not yet criticized Russia. Meanwhile, banks have started contacting clients to understand their exposure to Russia and to Ukraine to see if their business could be significantly impacted, resulting in delayed loan repayments of banks. Here we have to see this about banks and giving loans and payments. Here loan defaults. If exporters, for example, importers are there and exporters are there, they might have taken loans. If they do not pay the loan on time due to growing conditions, the loan default may take place. It will lead to non-performing assets. It will affect bank balances and non-performing assets. And new loans also banks cannot give. If no new loans, then economy also, the growth in economy also gets affected. Now it will have the consequences, and one by one all the systems will get affected. This is about banking related news. There is one news related to manufacturing sector. February manufacturing PMI signals uptick in output. Here this news is talking about there is improvement in manufacturing sector. What is the measurement? India's manufacturing sector saw an expansion in February as per IHS Market Purchasing Managers Index. This is important. Purchasing Managers Index, it will track the conditions of manufacturing, whether manufacturing activities are expanding or manufacturing activities are contrasting. Here, which rose to 54.9 from 54 in January. Here, anything above 50, PMI reading above 50 indicates expansion in activity levels. That means there is more demand for manufacturing and manufacturers also manufacturing the goods. It is a positive signal that economy is once again moving in the positive direction. February marks the 8th month in a row that sector has expanded, with PMI staying above long run average 53. So it is always above 50. That means since 8 months, manufacturing sector is now showing good trends. Favorable demand conditions led to an uptick in business optimism. Manufacturers can manufacture only if there is demand for the goods. This shows there is increasing demand as well, to the highest level since last October, although it is still below long-term average. Pickup in demand, input price inflation dropping, still employment in the sector decreased. Here demand is increasing, that's why manufacturing activity increased. Input price inflation also dropping, and more demand, more manufacturing. However, this increase in manufacturing activity is not still creating more employment. Still employment in the sector decreased. This is what this news is highlighting. What is this purchasing managers index means? The survey of purchasing managers from 400 manufacturing units was based on interviews conducted between February 10 and 22. This index is created based on interviews. Their 400 manufacturing units were contacted based on certain questions they asked. This particular manager index was developed by IHS Market. This organization creates a condition or it interviews 400 manufacturing units. Based on these interviews, it comes to conclusion that manufacturing activity is enhancing. However, this data is only from 10 to 22. The Russia declaration of war, Russian invasion of Ukraine took place after 24th, on 24th. That means this index is yet to take the consequences of the war between Russia and Ukraine. It does not incorporate the impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine last week. In next month, we may see what will be the impact on manufacturing sector. And there is another news that this is about the impact of Ukraine war. Russia, Sensex and rupee falls. This is just to give an example how it is already impacting Indian economy. Here Sensex is also falling. Rupee also depreciated comparing with the US dollar. And here foreign funds are flowing out, and trend in domestic activities also not good. Because of this, Sensex is falling. Rupee is also depreciating. because oil prices are increasing. Oil prices already above $110 per barrel. Now it will have impact on Indian depreciation, and it is going to have impact on inflation as well. It will affect India's economy. This is the evidence to show that how wars will affect economy globally. This is about this particular news. So we have seen some important news related to international and also economy related news. Thank you.